Welcome to the Pioneer Podcast, where we celebrate those who refuse to take the easy road, but instead blaze new trails and spark meaningful change. Today, we're honored to spotlight two remarkable pioneers, Danielle Finkelstein and Thyme Sullivan, co-founders of Unicorn in Every Stall. They both left thriving careers to tackle a simple but transformative idea. What if period products were as accessible in every restroom stall as toilet paper? Their mission goes far beyond its products. It's about dignity, equity, and breaking barriers for women in the workplace and beyond. Today, we'll dive into their journey, the moments that tested their resolve, the inspiration behind this movement, and how they're reshaping standards for public and workplace wellness. We're so grateful to be chatting with you ladies today. I know Thyme and I had an opportunity to meet and just was so impressed about what you ladies are up to and your career trajectory, how you got here. So as we set the stage, you haven't had a chance to meet Katie yet. Katie is our Chief Growth Officer here at Omli and also happens to be one of my very close friends. So I think the same way you all share a relationship and are working as co-founders, we're excited to dig into that topic too and what it's like to work with a close friend or family member and how that changes the journey in new, interesting, and hopefully mostly fun ways. Yeah, but maybe we'll start with having you ladies introduce yourselves and give a little bit of background.
Sure. I'm Thyme Sullivan, co-founder and co-CEO and cousin. So co-co-cos with Danielle Finkelstein. And in a perfect universe, we both walked out of our jobs or left our jobs at the same time. I had a background over 20 years with Coke, Pepsi, and Nestle. And Danielle walked out on her executive role. She'd worked with Talbots, Kate Spade, and Taylor & Coach. So we were the perfect storm of her with branding and marketing and me with sales and operations. And we decided to be pioneers.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Like, talk us through that decision. I mean, we know that fear of someone's giving you a paycheck for most of your life. And all of a sudden you're going to say, we're going to figure out how to pay ourselves in a new way. So how did that moment come to be?
I actually walked out of my job. I was the height of the career, corner office I had always dreamed of. I was finally a chief. And I stopped learning as a mom and as a woman and as a wife. Like, I stopped being present. I was completely burnt out. And I was just missing the passion that I had had in fashion for years. And I made a very bold decision and I literally walked out. I handed my paper in August to my boss and I said, today is my last day. I was going to take some time off. I was going to reset. I was going to spend a lot of time with my family. And the crazier part is, as Thyme just said, we're cousins and we hadn't seen each other in 30 years. Our dads were first cousins and my dad passed away very young. So our family is just, was raised differently in different places. And I knew I had this cousin. We were Facebook friends and I was like, hey, I'm going to reach out to her. And we live an hour away from each other. And we scheduled lunch. At that lunch, Thyme was like, because she had this idea already and she had started, really thinking about period products and already had sourced product and all of those things. She's like, how funny would it be if we worked together? And I was like, you're insane. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I need to go take time off. But I sat back and I actually look back at this time because within 2 weeks I was working with her. But one of the main reasons was, and Thyme always says, because she's the best salesperson. Okay, we'll give her that. We will give her that. But I think we were missing that learning piece again. And I actually called an old mentor of mine. He was my COO at Kate Spade. And I said, what do you think, George? Like, he's like, give it a go, Danielle. He's like, listen, what do you have to lose? Like, you get to get your hands back in, you get to get dirty again, you get to be an operator and see things from the full perspective versus just always being in that one place. And that really gave me, in a sense, almost that permission to be like, you know what, give this a try. And here we are 7 years later. But if Thyme had this vision of we were going to do something for our daughters, and that was something I know from my heart, I'm like, this was actually the purpose that I needed to find. And also then that passion again. And it's really crazy that, over that lunch, and we still look back, I still have the DM that I sent her and it changed the course of our lives. Yeah. That one meal, that one DM, but that one meal truly changed the course of what this next chapter is in our lives. And then hopefully, yes, for the future of all girls, and women. But when we talk about making bold moves, that was one of them. I think Thyme starting this and being like, yeah, I'm going to start a tampon and pad company. Yeah, why not? And then me jumping in with no real idea of what we were about to build, but we knew that there was something here. And I think that was probably the most exciting thing for both of us.
Amazing. Incredible. Time, what
Yeah.
about from your perspective? How does that moment spark the idea for the company and then the like, yes, and this is who I want to be my partner in this?
My story was a little different. It was laid off from Nestle, and I was like really mad when it first happened. And then I realized that it was the greatest gift that I was ever given because I grew up in a generation where getting laid off was a terrible thing. But now it happens every day, and people aren't fazed by it at all because our team was successful. Our numbers were great, but they just had a massive reorg and they wanted me to move. And that was also before COVID, in a time when if you didn't move with a company, you weren't loyal, which is insane to think of now that people are hybrid and working from home and remote and all these things. But that was the time. So I had some time to think. That's where people ask if you had courage. I'm like, I didn't have courage. I would have stayed there forever. I loved being an executive and all that stuff that went with it. And when the universe pushed me off my perch, I really had time to reflect. And I was 48 years old, by the way. That's really old to be like, you know what? I'm going to start a tampon company. My husband thought I was insane. But we were the breadwinners in our families, both Danielle and I. They know that once we get something in our minds, we needed to give it a try. And that's where the courage came in. And we did not have it perfectly baked, but we had an idea that we wanted to try it. But I think we get asked a lot about the perfection drop. There is no, you can't wait for it to be perfect and have a fully, people are like, oh my God, we have this idea. I'm like, it certainly didn't start like that. It started with a box on the shelf. And, you know, where we are today is so entirely different. And that has come by taking that risk. And we always knew, and I think everybody knows, you can always go back to those corporate jobs. They're there. The one good thing we didn't do is we didn't burn any bridges. We're really grateful for the experiences that we had and the network that we've still been able to maintain. But this experience to go out and build something and to really have impact has completely changed our lives, from learning and purpose and meeting really extraordinary people. Sarah, I reached out to you because I saw you on the Female Founder Collective and I was like, we should be friends because you're doing some cool stuff. But that wouldn't have happened in my old life if you met me at a party. Even though I had this huge team, I'm like, I sell Hot Pockets. See ya. And I would not have had these like conversations and experiences. And that's why I just think it's so incredibly critical for what you're doing to share these stories, because anybody can do it, and do not wait for it to be fully baked. Just take a step.
I love that. I know we get that question a lot, like, oh, it's so brave. And how did you get over the fear? I usually say, like, I didn't. I just was afraid and did it anyway. And every day I'm afraid of something new now. Like there's a new thing that I learned that I need to be worried about. And it's just the constant practice of feeling like that, pushing through.
I will say that Simon and I are actually, we appreciate the fact that we were naive in the beginning. I think that's probably the best thing, because here we both were major corporations. And so we had this sort of, you know, we had the Rolodex, we had the resume, we had those things, but we walked in a little naive, like, oh, we can go and do this. And we did, but there was so much learning. And that probably was one of our favorite parts, because every day we were learning something new. But when you look back and we go back to those like first 2 years, there was so much that we didn't know. And it's a good thing that somebody hadn't said to us, like, are you guys absolutely insane? And we just did it. So it was good that we had that belief in ourselves to just go.
Yeah. Trusting that intuition.
So it started with a DM, and here we are today. So give us some context into what you're doing at Unicorn and how the journey has kind of established itself since that lovely DM and lunch.
Yeah. I mean, what started as we just wanted to make better products for our daughters, and we were on shelf and Amazon and all those things, but we weren't making impact. I think this is probably one of the biggest lessons we've learned is we just started listening. You'll hear this all the time. You listen to your customers, you start hearing what they're saying. You have the same thing over and over again. And what we kept hearing from people we were selling bulk products to is, Kate, you make a better dispenser. The dispensers that are traditionally out there in bathrooms, if they have them for period products, are from the 80s, and they're often coin op, they're broken, they have really outdated product. The best example is the Whole Foods near my house, which goes to the end of the earth to have very high standards for everything within the four walls of the store. If you go to the public restroom, you need 4 quarters to get 2 cardboard applicator tampons, which is so dumb. Nobody has quarters. Nobody
carries a
needs
quarter?
2 tampons. And nobody wants the cardboard applicator one. We took a really hard pivot to build our impact. And that was, we weren't going to solve period poverty. We weren't going to change things in the world And like period products were actually available right next to the toilet paper. And I will tell you, my husband still says it, that if guys had their periods, it would have happened 50 years ago.
Mhm.
So what took so long? We spent over a year talking to facilities people, to janitorial, to end user customers, like, how can we make this really easy? And how you make it really easy is you put a stainless steel box over the toilet paper and you make them free and you make them the products that they want that are organic and sustainable, and they're right there. So many women are like, oh my God, I can't believe I never thought how nice and convenient it would be not to walk around with it up my sleeve or in my waistband or wherever you put it. It's so easy for us, strangely enough, when we've invited our allies and men into the conversation. It's as simple as just asking them, have you ever walked around with toilet paper? And they go, no, that would be insane. And I'm like, there you go. So that is exactly what we do. When people ask what we do, we just make the bathroom experience better for women by putting period products they want where they need them. So simple.
Well, Time, you had shared with me when we chatted too that actually you find it sometimes harder to convince women of the idea because we've just accepted the problem and all our workarounds. So tell us more about some of those conversations you had.
Yeah, that's the most surprising thing. I actually think that's interesting because in the beginning, we're an all women-based, women-founded company. We were just speaking to ourselves, and women will tell you it's a great idea, but there's a lot of women that don't want to ask for it, and they don't want it to be perceived as calling in a favor, which strangely, when we brought men into the conversation, we said, what do you think? They said, hey, we just didn't think about it, and this is a great idea. Everything from facility managers to janitorial to building owners to now we're speaking even with designers and architects, like, how do we just make this part of the future vision? They seem to say this is, especially guys that have daughters. I'll tell you, that's our best customers because they don't want to see their daughter in a situation where she's embarrassed or doesn't have anything or goes without. Danielle probably has the greatest ally story if you want to share.
I would say what changed our trajectory is, we had, as Thyme said, we'd been doing all of the creative. We'd spent about 6 to 9 months really like getting down to the design and this and what the new branding was going to be. We were very lucky. We've been banking with JP Morgan Chase since our very first dollar. This story it's sort of a little bit of a legend, but we got invited to a small cocktail party with Jamie Dimon. Our banker, she became passionate about our story and became an unbelievable internal advocate for us because she was that young girl who moved here with her single dad from Brazil to the United States when she was 10 years old. She was that girl who she extended her pad for too long. She couldn't play after school sports. So she had that shame. The second big story for her is that she went to one of those interviews that she'd always dreamed of. She's 25 years old. She goes out and she buys a white suit. I think we can all imagine what happened with that white suit. She went for her interview. She went to the bathroom. She got her period and she actually walked out. She never went for the interview. So that's a sliding door moment for her. She's like, I'm going to figure out how to get this up through the organization. I want this story to be told. So we get invited to the cocktail party with Jamie Dimon in Boston. And he finishes his speech. He's talking about the economy, interest, all this. This was 3.5 years ago. I grabbed Thyme. I'm like, let's go. Of course, she's like, what are we going to say? I was like, I at the point I didn't know. I was like trying to push through like the entire crowd of like getting through everybody. And we get up to him and shake his hand. Thank you, Jamie. We've been banking with you since the beginning. Your team has been incredible. I said, can I ask you a strange question? He's like, of course. I said, do you carry toilet paper around with you? And everyone else is asking him about crypto and this. And at that time, it was the war in Ukraine. That just stopped him. And it allowed us to open up this conversation that, again, he was not expecting to be having in this setting. But it allowed us to tell our story. And then he actually stopped me and he said, hey, listen. He's like, I get it. I've got wife. I've got daughters, and now I have granddaughters. He's like, let's figure out how to make this happen. It was finding that ally moment and finding that space, that alone set our trajectory. 100%. Our first bathroom that we ever installed in was in a JP Morgan Chase. The first bathroom. And the Mattapan branch right outside of Boston, like we can tell you, like we have pictures of us there, but like that was the first one. They took a risk. And they also saw the importance of what this meant to their employees. And then what this allowed was that true trajectory of like, listen, this is important for our employees. This is important for women. We're talking about well-being. We're talking about productivity, but we're talking about, we see you. And that was actually the change. We stood in those bathrooms with these women. They were crying because they're like, this is a mental load that we as women have carried forever. Finally, like I'm working for a company that like, they actually care about me. Those were the words that came across. It was one of those powerful moments. Again, when you go and you take that risk, we always say, like, I think he's the 17th most influential person in the world. And when you take that moment and you do something different, which is what we talk about all the time, do something different. It has to be sort of memorable. There were moments when we were in that room, we're like, what the fuck are we doing here? Who are we amongst? There's 100 men and 5 women, and we're we're 2 of those 5. But we were invited for a reason, and we have a story to tell, and we belong in that room. Those are the things that we do everywhere we go now. Like, we have to remind ourselves, like, we're here for a reason and continuing. So that moment alone did set our trajectory and really got us into places we're in now, like American Express, Blackstone, Toyota, Pepsi. We're in conversations with IBM. We just launched with Suffolk Construction. Like, the list is getting bigger and bigger. And what we are seeing is that organizations are recognizing that this is, as Vime said, it is so simple. It is so simple, and it's everywhere. There's toilet paper, just like the men. They're not thinking about it. Jamie's not carrying it around, and no other dude is. And so let's just put this where women deserve it.
I love it. You kind of keyed off too that there is like a real ability to calculate an ROI on it as well, right?
Oh, we recently met with this amazing economist, and he comes and he works with more startup world. We always calculated our impact. It was about like the 4 of us using period products. What did that impact? How does that impact the woman? But we weren't actually talking about the economic impact to an organization. And it's massive. When you can actually calculate it and create models behind it, there's business models that now we build behind it. We can now tell an organization, this is actually going to give you this many dollars back in productivity, which is going to hit your bottom line in this way. It's a different conversation. So when you can give them both the human impact and the financial impact, it's even more powerful.
Yeah. And not just for the employer, also for Jim's Rural Services Company, it's the significant labor savings because of how efficient and easy it is to drop a cartridge versus hand stocking every one. When we think about how we see ourselves in the future, when people first hear it, they're like, what? In every stall? But once you hear it, we're not, I think as Jamie Kern-Lima says, we're not crazy, we're first. One of the first people to do it, it's a tricky conversation, but do you remember what it was like to go someplace that doesn't have Wi-Fi now? You're mad about it. My kids have upset if there's not Wi-Fi, we go somewhere. In our lifetime, your Airbnb and Uber and Netflix and all these things, like when Uber first came out, I'll admit, I'm like, I'm not getting in somebody else's car. That's insane. But now you can't imagine, I'm annoyed to get a taxi now. So this is just people getting used to the idea that this is a necessity, just like toilet paper. During COVID, every single company in the country put hand sanitizer out overnight. It didn't put anybody out of business. It's still everywhere. It's really not different to expect something so simple to be there. And we've started working with companies. We still work with nonprofits. Incredibly exciting is now we're starting to work with construction sites, not just on job sites for women in the trades, but in their headquarters and with architects and designers, because this way upstream, like future, is that it's built into just like your toilet paper dispenser, your hand soap, your hand dryer, that it's no different. It's really exciting. We're launching with all different places. Our newest customer is going to be the Boston Convention Center, which is super exciting. We're trying all different, everything from, we put it everywhere. Starting Class A buildings is really our sweet spot right now, but everywhere away from home, women should have access to these products in our future world.
That's amazing. So obviously there's the ROI and the operations and of course that like aha moment for people, but how do you see it shifting cultures for those companies and those organizations that you're partnering with?
My phrase is, we're in the business of humans. So let's dial back to just the simplicity. The people on your team and your employees are your biggest asset and your most important asset. When you're forgetting about half of your population, because again, no dude is having to miss a meeting because there isn't toilet paper. And for a woman, we all know what happens. Like you MacGyver your toilet paper, you then are rushing back to your desk or you're rushing back to the meeting, but the entire time you're carrying the stress of, am I leaking? Like what's happening? I do believe that for organizations and just this culture shift of what this means is, we talk about, you hear all day and night about well-being and how important, and they're putting investments behind well-being. And in so many cases, that means like, okay, we're going to give you, some gym stuff. We're going to do this, but we can't control this. Like, this is a basic need. When we go into these state-of-the-art buildings, they have everything from golf simulators to private chefs for 3 meals a day, from, meditation rooms to a music room to a library,
Hair
to like
salons, spas.
hair salons, to everything. It's like, did you forget the one thing? And they do. The beauty is we're coming in and we're doing this retrofit, and we're able to put this in place because they weren't there when these state-of-the-art and landmark buildings were being done. And so the benefit is great. We actually are giving you a really modern solution that is going to go in there, and it's sleek and it's, discreet and all of those things, but that they're forgetting about it. Your people are your most important asset. That's just a simple shift in culture. Remember that, look, every day about the people that sit across from you at the table, and make sure that they're seen.
Amazing. Are you starting to feel like a shift in the conversation? Or are you feeling like you're still really defining the path and continuing to illuminate for people?
Once you equate it to toilet paper, like that is the shift. It does become this aha moment for so many men in particular. They're like, oh, they're not in our bathroom. Our big focus this, over last year, this year, and then the coming year is we just have to storytell around this. We have to raise the awareness that there actually is an option and educate. Because as soon as men do hear it and they're like, oh, wait, what do you have to do? We're like, oh yeah, this is what it looked like. Once they see it, they're like, oh yeah, no, that's not cool. So
That's yeah. And I love that this is the Pioneer podcast, because we rebranded to Unicorn because it was more fun. And one of our most important things, there's been times when we're like, wait a minute, if this is not fun, like, why do it? So we try to bring as much joy as we can into the industry that we're in. The pioneer probably that we refer to the most has got to be Sarah Blakely.
That's my girl.
Love her.
I love
I know we're
her.
going to be best friends. She just doesn't know yet. We keep trying, but we got
You're going to
We
have
got
that. I
one
mean,
there.
they're literally going to be fighting Sarah for that.
Simon and I had a
title,
whole conversation
so
about it.
just
We're
so you
doing it
know.
together. We don't have to compete. We're just going to help each other.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Like,
So
yes,
perfect.
absolutely.
There's strength in 4. Like, that's great. We got it.
But it's so great. But what she says is, she said, you can do serious things without taking yourself too seriously. And I just love it. I will tell you, during COVID, I probably applied 12 times to her Rent Backpack grant program. We finally got it.
She did.
I was like, we're getting this grant. It's funny. We were like on a Zoom call with her, and she gave us all her cell phone. Turns out it was a burner. That's unfortunate.
Times like she just texted us. I was like, no, she
Like,
didn't.
that's
not-
She texted everybody.
No, but we've met her a couple of times. She just is pretty fearless and puts herself out there. We love that she's who she is at home and who she is at work. And she's a great human leader. And listen, she's a self-made woman, and she's inspired us every step of the way. For her to start it with $5,000, and really just even like people telling her that she had to go to war, and she's like, I don't have to do that. We follow her religiously. I would say that's probably our pioneer.
Simon, I also really like tequila as well. So it's perfect. Between all of the other things, her and her
Oh,
tequila were like absolutely. And grapefruit
And
juice,
I
like
have- I may or may
100%.
not have walked around with my own fresh squeezed grapefruit juice in my
Oh, no,
purse,
she
because that's-
does. No, Thyme does now.
You got
Yes,
lessons from
I
the
think it's
goat.
really
so
smart.
you can't go wrong. I'm with you.
right?
Seriously.
Obviously, shared adoration for Sarah Blakely and her choosing industries that women have overlooked that they were problems, just like here, right? We've accepted the workaround. So I'm curious if there's advice you would give to others wanting to really start a purpose-driven company, and particularly for you all in an industry that is a little taboo and people tend to shy away from. Was there advice that you would give for
Yeah.
other women early in their journey?
The big thing is just start. As women in particular, when you're type A, like you want things to be perfect and you want things to be done a certain way, especially when you come from this large corporate background. We say all the time, we had to remove that baggage. We had to retrain muscles and give yourself the grace and give yourself the time. I think that's the other part too. It's the patience, which is very hard for us. Be patient, but also give yourself the grace. You're going to learn. You're going to make mistakes. We are learning every single day. And whatever mistakes we make, okay, what did we learn from that? Move forward and keep really thinking about how that applies to the future. rather than living in a world of looking back, we're constantly living in a world of looking forward.
I think, at least for me in corporate America, we were always chasing that next job, that next promotion. Like when I get this title or this job or this whatever, I think the difference with what we're doing now is the end. It's not about the end game. We're enjoying this journey and this process and following the road.
Anytime somebody joins our team from a big company, they go through, we call the detox. Like the moment where you're like, oh, I work at a place that's safe
Yes.
to say my kid was sick last night. So
Yes.
I'm really not all myself. Well, it's silly not to say that because otherwise everybody would be wondering why you're dropping the ball. But instead, when you tell us, yeah, my kid was up sick all night, we're like, oh, we get it. Give yourself some grace today. So it's just a silly thing that we all have come from these cultures where we're taught all of this isn't okay. And you have to go through this true mental detox. Even for those of us on the leadership team, a lot of times we're like, oh, wait, we're in control. We don't have to do that. We even have to remind ourselves sometimes of things that we've just put up with, like having to carry around period products that we don't have to do.
I love that. Sarah, you bring up such a good point because, I think that's a piece that, when Thyme and I started this and just sort of like going back to that culture piece is the two of us made a commitment to one another as we were building this together. And as we brought on people onto our team, like we both had lost so much sight of ourselves and then our families. Everybody took the back seat and it was always about the job. So we sort of shifted how our priorities, like we have to take care of ourselves first. But then number two is actually our family. Like we can't lose sight because that was too much. Then the third comes the job and then all the other things that go on in your lives. This goes back to that we're in the business of humans. Like just remember that part too. We've got to take care of ourselves. The oxygen mask is so critical.
Just be human.
We've heard about, kind of what you've realized about business, but I was going to ask, what have you learned about each other? How have you navigated this co-founder partnership that you have and what has been exciting or the most surprising?
Thyme is my best friend.
Yeah.
When we see single founders and we're like, how the fuck do you do that? Because every single day, like we are so grateful that we're doing this together because one of us is up or one of us is down or both of us are together up. And then, every so often, very seldom, like both of us are down, but the magic that the two of us can bring because we are such an incredible balance to one another and complement to one another. Like it really is like, we're so lucky that we get to do this. The last thing is the fun that we get to have together. Like we laugh so much. Even in the hardest times, we laugh through those hard times. Thinking that our chapter was going to be this and this part two of our careers, never knew it could be so good. And it's so good because of her and then this team that we get to do this with.
We just are so inspired by what you ladies are up to and truly like just the identification of a problem. Until we talked, I was like, I wouldn't also not have recognized this was a problem that I've just navigated around my whole life. So appreciative of the recognition of the challenge, the motivation to make life better for your daughters and then everybody's subsequent daughters to come. Last closing thoughts from each of you. What's one bold change that you would love to see in the next 5 to 10 years and how we can help us, the people that are listening? How can we be part of making that happen for you?
The most obvious one is that we envision a world where our daughters and the next generation don't remember going to a bathroom away from home that doesn't have period products. And I think our end game, it's actually more than the period products. Like we have come up through a system that was not built for women entrepreneurs. It is incredibly difficult to fundraise. When I tell you we have been turned down by so many venture capitalists, thank goodness we didn't end up taking venture money, but the fundraising world was not built for women. And our hope is to continue innovation and change is that we get to a point where we can mentor and invest in other women because we don't want anyone to have to go through what we've gone through as founders. It's things that have been said to us, the experiences we've been through. We could write a book. We're actually writing a book called Dumb Shit People Say to Us because there's a lot of it. But yeah, I would say it's this availability, this access for women, but it's also how do you inspire more women to bet on themselves and actually fund them?
I love that. It gives me chills. Inspire women to bet on themselves and fund them to do it. I love it. Danielle, what about you?
I'm going to echo Thyme on most of that. I think the big piece is that just, take the leap, believe in yourself. I think that's a part too for so many women is believe in yourself. And in those moments when you don't, also, what is that network that you've created around you? Really find those, allies, those women, the men who become that, your almost personal board of advisors that you can really lean on and that can help push you through. Put yourself out there. We love that we get to be able to share the story because we hope that people can take away that it is possible.
I just feel so inspired by like that it was a problem that we've all had for generations. And there are so many other problems that we all face every single day that are overlooked in large part because the world was not made for women, to your point. So we're operating in a world of inventions that weren't created for our problems. So just the inspiration to say, look around and see what problem you can solve is also really powerful. And we have to do what you said, time. Listen to women and fund them so they can go ahead and solve them.
Find your people.
Yeah.
We weren't talking to our people. Now we are. Now we're surrounded with our people.
That's so important.
Yes. We love it.
Awesome. Ladies, this has been so great. It's so lovely to hear your story, to help support you however we can on that journey. We're here for that. And just so grateful that you're tackling this. And as you talk about it, I'm like, man, it would be an amazing world if my nieces don't have to worry about this when they go off to high school. So pretty incredible mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. That flew by.
You ladies are incredible.
What a
I
delight
know.
to
We
meet
love
all
what you
today.
guys are doing too. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Takes a tribe.
Absolutely. Yes. Exactly.
Thank you, Danielle and Thyme, for joining us and sharing your story with such candor and passion. Your work with Unicorn in Every Stall shows us that real pioneers don't just imagine a better world. They roll up their sleeves and build it, one stall at a time. To our listeners, if you're inspired by the courage to tackle stigmas and champion progress, let this conversation remind you that leadership is about showing up, especially where change is long overdue. Be sure to subscribe for more stories of pioneers who are embracing the unpaved path, discovering new possibilities, and bringing out the best in all of us.